For years, the big story about McDonald's here in the US was, well, it was about shrinking. Stores were closing down, especially those ones you'd see inside places like Walmart. But then, they just did a complete 180. The company announced this massive, multi-billion-dollar expansion plan. So, what in the world is behind this huge reversal? Let's break it down.
So if you look back between, say, 2015 and 2021, McDonald's was really in retreat mode. The company shuttered, get this, a net of more than 900 locations across the country. It really felt like they'd finally hit their saturation point. But then, bam, everything changed. They announced a plan to build hundreds of new restaurants. It is a huge, totally surprising pivot.
And yeah, this is a move that has left a lot of analysts just scratching their heads. After all those years of strategic closures, of carefully trimming their footprint, why on earth the sudden multi-billion-dollar bet on aggressive expansion? What could have possibly changed their minds so dramatically?
Well, it turns out the answer isn't some new burger or a flashy marketing campaign. It's much, much bigger than that. It's all about where people are choosing to live. See, the pandemic really kicked a massive population migration into high gear, with people moving away from dense cities. And McDonald's looked around and realized, wait a minute, our customers are on the move and we're not there to meet them.
And this right here, this reveals the absolute core of their entire strategy: proximity. McDonald's is just obsessed with hyper-convenience. The mission is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. They want to be so close that grabbing a Big Mac is always the easiest option, the path of least resistance. And when they looked at these new booming communities, they saw a massive, glaring gap on their map.
Okay, so let's quickly define this key term, Exurbs. What are we talking about here? Well, you can think of them as kind of like the new American frontier for a lot of families. It's that ring just beyond the traditional suburbs. You get the bigger yards, a slower pace of life, but you're still within striking distance of the city. And this is exactly where McDonald's sees its next big gold rush.
All right, to really see this strategy in action, we need to head down to North Texas. It's basically become ground zero for this whole exurban explosion, and for McDonald's race to cash in on it. This area around Dallas, it perfectly illustrates both the opportunities and, yeah, the challenges of their new plan.
The scale of this migration is it's staggering. Get this, since 2020, Texas alone has added 2 million new residents. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that's like adding the entire population of Houston in just a few years. Can you imagine? That's millions of potential new customers.
And you better believe McDonald's is responding aggressively. They have built over 40 new locations just in the Dallas area since 2020. They're planting those golden arches all over these booming communities, making a huge bet that wherever people move, their appetite for convenience is going to follow right along with them. But here's the thing. This super rapid expansion isn't happening without some tension. For the people who live in these once quiet towns, the arrival of dozens of fast food chains is a total double-edged sword. It's forcing a really big debate about what they value most in their community.
So on the one hand, you've got this undeniable convenience, right? And that feeling that their town is finally on the map. But on the other hand, a lot of these residents moved there specifically to escape the very things that are now showing up on their doorstep: traffic, noise, and a landscape that used to be defined by open fields, which are now getting dotted with corporate logos.
And this quote from a local parent, I think it just says it all. For so many people, this isn't about some big corporate strategy. It's about making a hectic, busy life just a little bit easier. It's that tangible, real-world benefit of simplifying a crazy day, one drive-through trip at a time.
Okay, so the big multi-billion-dollar question is this bet actually paying off? McDonald's is pouring a fortune into this exurban push, but are these shiny new restaurants actually performing the way they expected? Well, the early numbers, they tell a pretty surprising story.
So check this out. Some third-party data reveals a really interesting wrinkle here. The traffic at these brand new exurban locations is actually lower than at the older, more established stores in denser areas. It kind of suggests that, just because you build it doesn't mean they will come, at least not right away.
Now, of course, McDonald's has an answer for this. They basically say, hey, this is totally normal. They argue that this is the usual pattern for new stores, and that it takes a good 2 to 3 years for a location to really become part of a community's fabric and daily routines. So, they're not worried. They are playing the long game here.
A Texas realtor made a really interesting point. He said that McDonald's is famous for being like 8 to 10 years ahead of a growth wave, buying up land where nobody else sees the potential yet. But in this case, they're actually a little bit late to the party. The thing is, with these towns growing so incredibly fast, even playing catch-up could position them perfectly to ride the next massive wave of expansion that's still on its way.
So, that leaves us with the big question, right? Is McDonald's being brilliant here, getting in 8 years ahead of the next big wave? Or are they just playing a really expensive game of catch-up to a trend that's already here? The answer isn't just going to determine the success of this multi-billion-dollar bet. It's also going to shape the future landscape of America's fastest-growing communities for decades to come.